a Playlyst original.
Welcome to the Pilot Podcast,
where we review the pilot episodes of TV shows to answer your question, should I watch this?
My name is BJ.
And my name is Mitu.
And this week, we're watching Happy's Place on NBC, Georgie and Mandy's First Marriage on CBS, Brilliant Minds on NBC, and the Pradeeps of Pittsburgh on Prime Video.
So stay tuned to the end to find out which CBS procedural BJ would join, or just network procedural, period.
Okay, I have some ideas, but before that, how about we head on down to Happy's Place?
I love your Southern accent. Half-sisters Bobby, played by Reba McEntire, and Isabella, played by Belisa Escobedo, learn about each other's existence and that they have each inherited half of their father's bar.
Happy's Place. That's the bar for listeners.
Oh.
So, me too. You are a big fan of the show, Reba. So how do you feel seeing her back in another sitcom?
I was thrilled. And I love that she picked up the mic again for the intro. Love a Reba McEntire sung theme song. As you know, the Reba theme song means a lot to me spiritually, emotionally. So I really love that she got back on that mic and sang beautifully for this theme song. And beyond the music, if you already like Reba, this is a great show. This is Reba in her element, being cranky and crotchety and funny and button heads with Barbara Jean. This time, in this iteration, Gabby, played by Melissa Peterman.
Yeah, she has the cranky kind of bully aspect sometimes, but she's very heartfelt and she has the emotion behind everything. And it's all funny. I don't really know anyone else who can combine everything she does in a appealing and funny way.
Ooh, this is high praise for Reba. Okay.
I'm a fan.
I like that. And this is a good cast, too. So she has a lot of great people to bounce off of. Like I said, we have Melissa Peterman coming back to work with Reba McEntire. Those two people are simply made to do comedy together. And she's playing a bartender. We also have Dakota, a waiter, played by Tokala Black Elk. And then we have the cook, Emmett, played by Rex Lynn.
And our accountant, Steve, played by Pablo Castelblanco.
Yes, I love specifically how we're seeing the dynamic between Bobby and Bella with Steve and Gabby. Those were two good examples of people liking this new dynamic for Happy's Place Bar and people disliking this dynamic for Happy's Place Bar.
Yeah, it's fun seeing these half-sisters try and balance running a place together when Bobby would rather just do it herself. And I think the bar is a really nice setting because it gives a reason for all the cast members to be there because it's a workplace sitcom.
It's true. It's just a smart setting. And to your point, there are really lovely heartstrings that they're pulling on here. There were a couple quotes that really stuck out to me. At one point, Bella says, "I've wasted so much of my life not feeling wanted, so why should I fight to stay in a place that just confirms it?" And then we have that Reba comedy because she just goes, "Safe travels." And like tells her, "Yup, confirmed. You're not wanted. Get out of here." But then
Tough love.
Tough love, exactly. But then to your point, Bobby, a moment later, has this really heartfelt moment saying, "You look at me and you see the father you wish you had. And when I look at you, I lose the father I thought I had," because Bobby was really close to her father. And Bella never got an opportunity to get to know him. And so that was really beautiful, too. I thought that showed really well exactly what you're talking about, where when you're getting a half-hour comedy like this, especially with Queen Reba McEntire, you're going, "Aw," at the same time that you're laughing.
I agree. I had two moments that stood out to me. One, we learned that Steve doesn't like people touching his stuff. He's a germaphobe. And when Gabby pushes the limits, he just sprays her with some compressed air. And she realizes, yep, cross that line. My bad.
As my therapist would say, what are boundaries if you're not setting them? It's an active activity.
And he keeps those boundaries up.
Exactly. Inspirational.
And the moment when they come down, there's a scene where Isabella and Gabby get to talk one-on-one. And a running gag during this episode is that Gabby really wants to be Bobby's best friend or sister.
Mm-hmm.
And I like when Isabella is like, hey, you can talk to me. I will listen to you like that sister you've always wanted. And they have a legit moment where she's like, oh, someone does care. That was sweet.
That was genuinely beautiful. I mean, it was very funny at the same time, but it was
Yes.
genuinely beautiful.
So you got that balance. Reba knows how to do it.
Do you want to keep watching Reba know how to do it on Happy's Place on NBC?
I would watch this again casually. It's an easy to watch and funny half-hour sitcom. And sometimes that's what you need. How do you feel?
I agree. This was very funny, and I will absolutely watch again casually. And for Sitcom Hive, for Reba Hive, I think you'll enjoy this one.
Nice.
All right, so why don't you take us from Happy's Place to a not-so-happy home?
You're talking about Georgie and Mandy's first marriage on CBS. This is the third television series in the Big Bang Theory franchise, and it's both a direct sequel and a spin-off of the sitcom Young Sheldon that's focusing on the marriage of young parents Georgie Cooper, played by Montana Jordan, and Mandy McAllister, played by Emily Osment. So me too, we're back at the Big Bang folks. How do you feel seeing them again on your screen?
The Big Bang Theory universe continues to expand.
Wild.
Though I was not really a Big Bang Theory watcher, I did watch Young Sheldon.
I did not know this about you.
I did. I watched like 5 episodes of it on a flight once, and that was enough for me to lock in. And so,
wow. So you know Georgie and Mandy.
I do. And I stuck with Young Sheldon even after that flight. I never watched the episodes that preceded that flight. I think I dropped in on like season 3 or something.
Okay.
But a really lovely television program. It was a single cam, so it's interesting to see George and Mandy now as a multicam. And it felt like they were making those meta jokes about Frasier and a comedy being a comedy if people are laughing to address that transition. But I didn't mind having a laugh track with this one.
I thought the laugh track worked. I will say, as someone who has seen more Big Bang Theory than Young Sheldon, I didn't have much context to these characters. So it was a little harder to connect to them because it does feel like it's picking up where something left off.
100%. There is so much in Young Sheldon that sets up Georgie and Mandy with Mandy's parents not being welcoming, with Georgie's mom and grandma being the people in Georgie's family who really supported them while Mandy was cast out by her family. So there is some backstory that I think they quickly addressed in this first episode. And I also think a little bit they understand that Big Bang Theory has a huge audience. Young Sheldon had a huge audience. And so probably this is for that same giant audience.
And I can see the appeal. Georgie and Mandy, great chemistry. I believe them as this couple who is struggling with their family around them.
And it's sweet to see how supportive he is of her.
He's loyal.
Like a dog.
Some might say he has a lot in common with dogs.
And that some might be Mandy's mom, who was the best part of the show.
Amazing. Also, similar to Reba, mean but heartfelt.
I love a mean lady character. I really do. I love women being bad. In this case, I don't think she's being quote unquote bad, but I just love a mean lady in media, in a show, book, movie, anything. And she really delivers that. And she has some good zingers.
Yes. And I think what helps is we understand why this is so tough for her. She's seeing her young daughter starting a family, struggling with this man who she probably does not think highly of because now she's a grandmother. And so she's balancing wanting to be there for her daughter and grandchild and also trying to reprimand them for some of their choices.
Mandy's also like maybe 10 years older than Georgie. I can't remember the exact storyline on Young Sheldon. Yeah, he was fresh out of high school, I want to say. And she had, I believe, just lost her job as a news anchor.
Oh.
So I think
they should add that into the pilot.
I wonder if they want us to sort of keep skipping through that.
That's fair. It's interesting, though.
Yeah, so another dynamic, because that was a point in Young Sheldon where they were like, tell us more about him. And she was like, well, he is a high school graduate, an enterprising young man, a teenager.
Hey, he's doing well at work because he has her dad, Mr. McAllister, looking out for him.
Yes, you see a lot of growth with him on Young Sheldon. And one thing that he consistently was on that show, and we see in this show, is enterprising, genuinely. I do not use that word sarcastically. He's good at his job. He's good at working and hustling for his family.
So it sounds like you believe in Georgie. You want the best for Georgie and Mandy. Will you keep watching more episodes of their first marriage on CBS?
I think if you were Young Sheldon Hive, you will enjoy this show. I think if you were not Young Sheldon Hive, I don't know that I recommend this comedy because I feel like, at least in this pilot, there were a lot of blanks for people who are unfamiliar with the story. Even in our conversation, I'm realizing how much I knew versus what you knew. I almost feel like we watched a nerd show, but in reverse.
Yep.
Where I'm explaining the lore to you. But for me, as someone who enjoyed Young Sheldon, if you enjoyed Young Sheldon, I think you'll like this one. I think I'll watch it while cooking. It's just a solid 20-minute show. Or like a lunchtime watch. I think it could be good for that too.
I agree. I can see the appeal there for would watch while doing laundry. I'm sure it helps a lot to have some of that backstory and adds more context to what was happening. However, these characters are endearing. I do see a lot of heartfelt family emotions and bonds there that would be appealing for this show.
Yeah, also to be clear, definitely not complicated. So it isn't exactly like, you know, the aliens came 1,000 years ago, and then you'll have to understand the 500-year-old Civil War. Like, this is a fun family sitcom.
They don't mention how Georgie and Mandy met, but you'll be able to follow along with this story.
Yeah, you'll be fine.
But how about we go to something that covers cases that are a little more complicated?
You're talking about Brilliant Minds on NBC. Dr. Oliver Wolf, played by Zachary Quinto, is an eccentric, gifted neurologist leading a team of interns using out-of-the-box, usually rule-breaking methods to tackle some of the world's most puzzling psychological cases.
Now, Mitu, I'm going to ask you a leading question.
Okay.
How do you feel about a medical professional breaking the rules?
Don't feel great about it. I think this is a show where you have to turn your brain off, especially if you're someone who has spent a lot of time in a hospital. You have to go, you know what? Let me just enjoy this for entertainment purposes only. Because imagine if your doctor went rogue like that. Wow.
I feel the same way. Oliver, or Dr. Wolf, he's a neurologist. And a hint at the real world listeners, I work adjacent to neurology. So the patients he's dealing with are the people I interact with, and seeing him just essentially kidnap a patient from the hospital.
Ooh.
Wild. That set off a lot of red flags. And then I realized, like you, just enjoy the spectacle. Don't think too hard about the medicine.
I hadn't even considered your field when watching this, so I bet you especially were like, several times, because I know I was like, and then I just had to your point, I think it was that first scene, the kidnapping of the patient. Maybe like a scene or two after that, I was like, you know what? You're going to have to turn that part of your brain off. And then I enjoyed the show.
Yes. And to be fair to Dr. Wolf, well, no, he did kidnap a patient. His reasoning was to bring the patient to his family to help him with his memories, even though he put everyone at risk.
The patient, the family, the guests at the wedding, everybody.
Himself, yeah.
But, those are the unbelievable medical practices we love from an NBC or network medical drama.
This is a network medical drama through and through. You have your super smart doctor with special skills no one else has. In this case, Dr. Wolf can't recognize faces. So we see him solving puzzles different ways without really being able to connect immediately.
And this show is intentional, including little moments, especially in this pilot, along with the case of the week, to show that he's not like other doctors. So, for example, in one of the cases of the week, a patient does not recognize her own kids. And the medical staff and the other doctors are kind of yelling at her, and they're like, "Oh, these are your kids, girl. Get it together. We're taking the kids away, or you need to clean it up." And instead, in the hubbub of her freaking out and not recognizing the young kids in front of her that are her own, he goes, "Well, who are they?" And that was supposed to, I think, show us, unlike everyone else who's yelling at her and telling her what the reality is, he's asking her to confirm what her reality is, because he knows what it's like to be different. And he employs those skills in his approach.
Yes, he sees patients, not just medical cases.
And we're going to see him teach that to his interns. I think that's going to be a fun dynamic. We didn't get to spend as much time with them in this pilot, but the time that we did spend with them, we already saw a little bit of tension within the crew, tension between them and the doctor. And I think I saw a little bit of a crush brewing. And I also loved seeing Spence Moore from AP Bio as one of the interns, Dr. Jacob Nash.
So, Midu, another question, leading question. If you were leaving work for the day and all of your interns showed up while you were in the parking lot and hopped in your car, how would you react?
It's so funny that you bring that up, because I was just joking with my sister-in-law this weekend about when I was a child and my mom, without my knowledge, invited a lot of my friends from middle school to a surprise party. But when you invite children to a party at your home, they don't drive. And so my mom just picked them up along with me from school. But as everybody piled into the car with me, I turned around and I was like, "What are you doing here? What are you doing here?" And my mom had to be like, "Oh, surprise." Because I reacted so negatively and so scared.
Get out our car now.
Like, no, just me and my mom. Not you, not you.
Different
this is
home.
not your mom.
Leave. Like, we can call your parents, but this is not how you get home.
Yeah, like if you need a ride, like Uber's not invented yet, but maybe a taxi.
Maybe one day.
One day there's going to be an app where a stranger drives you places. That stranger is not my mom, not today, not years from now when this app is invented. And so I might react similarly as I did when I was a child.
Which seems reasonable. I'd say, I met you today. If you're Dr. Wolf, you barely recognize these people as well.
That's true. And the face blindness. So you really barely recognize people.
So I'd say, get out my car, please. Please. There's more of you than me.
Like, I'm asking nicely.
So overall, would you watch more episodes of Brilliant Minds on NBC?
Well, they can pile into the car of the shows I watch while I'm cooking. This is a solid medical drama. It's a well-practiced formula. Very, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I am not quite a medical drama girl, so I don't think I'll sit down every week and watch this one. If you are a medical drama girl, that is a gender-neutral term, then I think you would enjoy even watching this seriously, because the acting is great, the story was great. I'm just not quite that person, and so I'll probably just watch while cooking, because it's still good. It has my attention.
I'm in a similar boat where I want people to know this is a good show. It fits that formula really well for medical dramas. I think the case of the week that they have going on and the potential is exciting. We didn't really have time to touch on it, but there's also a deeper storyline about his childhood that they are throwing in there and will get weaved into episodes. But I am not going to watch again just because it is too close to my actual work and I don't really like the unbelievable aspects.
That makes absolute sense. And we didn't get into that, but his backstory is a big part of the show. And I think that'll be interesting to uncover when just I keep watching this show.
You can let me know about that part of the show.
I'll fill you in. Why don't you take us from the hospital to the cul-de-sac?
You're talking about the Pradeeps of Pittsburgh on Prime Video, attempting to prove their innocence to a pair of investigating government agents by recounting their initial life in America after moving from India. Although each family member has a different perspective on the events, but they're going to weave together a story with humor, heartbreak, and that often complicated pursuit of their respective American dreams.
So, Beej, how did you feel about this story being told from different points of view? Because in this first episode, we mostly got it from the mom, Sudha, played by Sindhu V's perspective.
I really enjoyed this concept of different family members telling the story because it adds a lot more humor in that the editing, they'll sometimes go back. So in this case, Sudha, the mom, was telling the story, and then Banu, the daughter, played by Sahana Srinivasa, would interrupt and be like, oh, hold on, you didn't like what you saw, so you said it this way, but actually it was this way. So you rewind a little bit and replay scenes, and I thought that was really fun. And how'd you feel?
It is so telling how each person told their story too, beyond the story told. With the mom, her family kept checking her because she was just adding juice to her stories, and she called it masala. She was seasoning her story. Mm-hmm. And so we know that she is like a ridiculous character. The dad, Mahesh, played by Naveed Andrews, he was bringing us back to earth a little bit. We had Banu being like kind of over everything, and so giving that perspective of the stories of like being kind of a bit of a victim of her family because she's a teenager, sick of everything. And then we have Kamal, who finally speaks at the end, her brother, played by Arjun Shuram. And he also adds a really interesting perspective. And his silence and the way that he told his story were both like very telling of the character. So I thought it was a smart way to introduce us to who these people are and how they interact with each other without us needing to watch them interact with each other or spend a lot of time on like a ton of backstory.
Yeah, we see their family dynamics in how they describe their family and their interactions with their family, which I think is a fun way to get into their heads. And something you pointed out in other stories we watch is whether or not we can believe what we see.
Yeah.
This is a case, everyone is an unreliable narrator. So it's a challenge to kind of pick apart what's the truth, because they're all saying similar things, but no one agrees with each other.
And moving to a new place is such a great way to mine comedy and that unreliability, because there's this hope for a fresh start, and then there are the letdowns that come with. They thought their house was going to be this like shining house on a hill. They walk in, it's just a house in the suburbs, and it's unfurnished without toilet paper. So there's an adorable moment with the youngest child, Vinod, played by Ashwin Sakthival, asking for toilet paper because he had already gone to the bathroom, but apparently
he needs something.
Unfurnished means no toilet paper too. And so I thought that was really smart to use the move to catalyze the personalities even further, because people are a mess when they move. And then in this case, they're not just moving homes within a country, they are moving to an entirely new place. And that comes with a lot, especially if you are a brown family in a part of America, or at least in their neighborhood that they're showing us, where there aren't a lot of people who look like you and have accents like you do.
Exactly. And something I kind of glossed over, but I'll emphasize it, is they're recounting this story because there is some conflict with their neighbors. So specifically that neighborhood that they've moved into, something's going on with next door. we see one of the next door people, Stu, played by Nicholas Hamilton, who has maybe an instant connection with Banu. It's unclear from Banu and Suda's interpretation. But that seems to be the start of this conflict between the two families.
You know what? I didn't even think about how that's such a good example of the unreliability of their narration. I genuinely can't tell if there's a real connection there. It kind of seems like the truth, obviously, is just somewhere in between their stories where Banu is clearly just acting out because she's upset she's there, but she is not being as extreme as Mama thinks she's being.
Exactly. They're not bumping and grinding to whatever song Suda makes up as the hit hip-hop song of the day. But maybe there isn't this like budding romance that Banu seems to hint at.
Yes, I think that she will look past Stu in due time.
Speaking of looking past people, we have a conflict here on the Pilot Podcast.
Okay, well, let's fight.
Wow. Okay, you chose violence. I personally feel like you can look past the two suits whose character names are Dark Suit, Light Suit. But you think they bring a little more to this show.
Okay, I'm not saying that the suits are just mission critical for the show, like the actual presence of them, but I do think the family sitting in that room across from those suits, that as the catalyst for them sharing their stories was interesting. And it made me really intrigued in the longer term story because we don't know exactly why they're there, why they're in trouble, and I want to know. So they've managed, at least for me, to make this even more than an already funny sitcom concept of, you know, these like fish out of water stories where a family comes into an area they're unfamiliar with and they're learning the area and dealing with each other as they navigate those changes. That's a pretty classic sitcom formula. I think this adds a little masala to it to have them across the table from those agents. And there's like a big ooky spooky mystery that we don't know why that is literally threatening their citizenship.
Okay, I will give you that.
Point.
I think that the suits help with the setup for the story and how they're telling their backstory of what happened, because I do prefer this as a investigation versus they could have easily done a mockumentary style, like one-on-one interviews, Modern Family take on this. But I prefer it being a little more high stakes, even though it is funny.
I agree. So we were never fighting at all, and the lesson along the way was friendship.
Sure. So what do you think of the Pradeeps of Pittsburgh on Prime Video?
I will watch again seriously. Prime Video, Freevee, you have my attention with these sitcoms. I wish you had given Primo another season. That was such a good show. This is another fantastic one. Please do not give us another fantastic show with a family, especially one with a story that we don't typically see in sitcoms, and then don't give it another season. So not only do I want to watch again seriously and recommend for Comedy Hive to watch again seriously, I am making a direct appeal to Jeff and them at Prime Video to let us continue this show.
Jeff, I hope you're listening. We need the Primos. I'd also say this is in the same category as Run the Burbs.
Yeah.
I would watch again seriously, and we need as many people to.
So tune in.
Stream.
All right. What was the question I asked you? Oh, which procedural would you join? Which network TV procedural would you join?
You and me are going to be dropped into the world of How to Get Away with Murder. We're just two law students caught up in a mess. And you will be handcuffed to me all season long.
No.
Shondaland, here we come.
I do not want to be in a Shonda Rhimes show. I love watching Shonda Rhimes productions. I never would want to be a character in one.
Okay, you and me are on the Kings of Napa, different feuding sides of this family.
We're against each other on Kings of Napa?
Mm-hmm.
But we were handcuffed to each other in How to Get Away with Murder.
And you didn't like that?
That's not the part I didn't like.
Well, I don't know what to tell you. I can't make you happy, it seems.
That's not the point of this. I thought you were just going to say, like, I don't know. I'd be on the staff of the hospital at Scrubs because those guys seem to have fun together.
We could be interned on Brilliant Mind.
No,
not Brilliant Mind. High Potential. We could be interns in that detective department.
No. Because on those shows, there's always an episode where they're alone with the person who is the murderer. And as they put it together, they realize, like, they did say killers always wear blue shirts. And then they look at the person's wearing that color shirt. But when they turn around to notice that, the person's holding a gun and they're like, you figured it out. And I don't ever want that moment.
You don't want to figure it out?
No.
We're interns, though, so they won't ask us who did it.
No, I just want ignorance. Fine, I'll be with you in Kings of Napa, because at least that means, like, we live in Napa, which is beautiful.
Or we can just, I guess, be at Happy's place, just regulars.
I don't drink. Neither do you, really, so...
They have food. There's a kitchen.
Okay.
I can't win this, can I?
I guess we can have bar food. I love a nacho.
Anyway, if you want to find some shows that we agree about, head to our website at thepilotpodcast.com, and you can follow us on all your favorite podcast platforms.
You can also follow us on social media at The Pilot Pod, and you can send thoughts, feelings, show recommendations, because every other week we do a show recommended by you, our wonderful listeners, to askthepilotpodcast@gmail.com. Thanks for listening.
Bye.